Hey, it's Karen from the Beyond IVF Baby channel. I'm so glad you're here. Well, first off, happy 2025. It's a brand new year, a fresh slate, and I want you to have your baby. So I decided this would be a good time to go over some of the 2 week wait freakouts that really make the experience difficult. So you're probably watching this because you've either had repetitive miscarriages or you've done IVF a couple of times and it didn't work out for whatever reason. You didn't implant, you didn't, or you did get pregnant and you had an early miscarriage, or any number of things that didn't lead to having your baby. So, some of the things I experienced, which were not good, which were very stressful at the particular time, still did not hurt me in terms of being able to finally have a successful pregnancy after 9+ years of trying, after countless regular pregnancies, or not regular, as in non-IVF pregnancies that failed, after having countless IVFs that didn't had no implantation, failed, etc. This is what I went through during that last attempt that actually ended up making everything was okay because I had a healthy daughter at the end of the day. So these are the things that were not ideal. One, I had already delayed, I think, having the transfer by at least a month because I think my inflammation levels or something were really bad. So we had to up the dose of Rayos and other meds. So that was one thing. Okay, so we get to that next month and my lining was responding to all the hormones and the treatments to prep. However, it was not the ideal lining. So it was thick enough as in being more than 8 inches. However, it didn't have that ideal, I think it's called trilaminar image or look in terms of being, I guess, the healthiest implantation uterus that would be good for implantation. So that was one thing that wasn't in my favor. Another thing that was not ideal was that just getting to the after the transfer, we'll talk about that first. You're supposed to do progesterone and oil. Okay, in the US it's pretty standard. You have a vial, and no, my doctors wouldn't give me before. I had to get it in Europe, and you would draw from it many times, so I was very familiar with that procedure. Okay, in Europe, progesterone and oil is in a single use vial, and it's a vial that you have to break. Of course, there's a device, very cheap, that will break it for you, so there's no chance of it breaking unevenly, the glass shattering, getting cut, all these things. Okay, so basically, I ended up not even doing the progesterone and oil because by the time I got back to my Airbnb, it was so late, I wasn't able to make head or tail out of what I was supposed to draw up, the drawing needle versus the injection needle. And I think it turned out I may not even have the correct needles that I was supposed to have. I actually ended up going back to the fertility clinic, I believe, the next day or something. But I can't even, be sure of what happened. But something was wrong in terms of how the protocol was written with the particular needles that were referred to. So after trying to find someone on the chat that could explain something because the clinic was closed, I just decided I'm gonna have to wait until morning and hope for the best. Okay, so another thing that went wrong, I was able to do the intralipids at the clinic very easily after my transfer. However, I stayed in Europe for at least another 7, maybe 8 weeks, because I really wanted to know if I was pregnant, after the 2 week wait, and then how was the pregnancy? Like, you know, I got an ultrasound and I wanted to know, like, basically if I was going to have to do another transfer. I didn't want to have to fly back again so soon. I just wanted to stay in Europe. So that was another questionable, issue, because I wasn't able to do the intralipids per the US protocol the way I wanted to. Why? By the time I was supposed to have my next intralipid, I was now in Germany. And Germany only had, I think, 2 reproductive immunologists in all of the country. Both of these immunologists were in random areas, not near any major city. But I thought, well, let me call. I had family that, maybe they could help me get there, but they were not willing to take me on as a patient for just a one-time treatment. So I was pretty much on my own and just scrambling to make sure as soon as I returned home to Miami, I was able to get right back getting treatment for the intralipids. But other things that went wrong, I was traveling extensively during this time, and I ended up discovered that when I was traveling from, I believe, Austria to Hungary, I was not in a first class train, so I had to lift my suitcases, and the storage wasn't as, easy as it was in first class. So I couldn't just like roll in my suitcase. I had to really lift it, and my suitcase was more than 30 pounds. So I was thinking, ooh, a little bit superstitious. And as luck would have it, I did discover, spotting, like around that time on that trip. So that was scary, thinking, oh no, I've already ruined this. But things ended up being okay. Maybe that was actually implantation spotting, which I had never experienced with any of my other pregnancies. And let me explain the actual day of, because the actual day of transfer was very, very stressful. Why? Because I found myself, booking, my trip, and we didn't know exactly when my transfer was going to be. So as luck would have it, I was leaving the day before my transfer to Austria. And Austria and Czech Republic, they're neighbors. I think the train is like 4 hours or less. So it's very close. It's like Miami and Orlando. It's like, it's not a big deal. However, I thought, as being a world travel, being to Europe so many times, I'm just going to use the subway. And it wasn't like I hadn't used it before ever, but for some reason, I ended up getting off at the wrong spot, found out too late, tried again, got on the wrong train, going the wrong direction, the opposite direction. So I was like, okay, I got to get off and get an Uber. So I got off, got an Uber. Of course, it was the rush hour. So even in the Uber, I was like, I may not make it. I did not make it. I think, as I was just getting to the stop, the train was leaving. So I was like, okay, great. I still could probably get the next train and make it, and maybe I'll just be like a half hour, an hour late. I'll let them know, everything will be okay. No. So something had happened, shortly after. There were all these announcements that there's international train delay, and my train, which was supposed to, get in maybe a half hour late from when my transfer was going to be, was suddenly like up in the air. When is the train going to leave? When is it going to get there? So it ended up being, I got to the clinic really hours late, probably around the time of closing. To top it off, my coordinator was out. The doctor I had been talking with from the United States, I think was on vacation or something. So I had a totally random doctor. I mean, everything was explained to me when I got in that these changes were going to occur. But like, I met the doctor who did my transfer that day for the first time. And, I could tell everyone was like really waiting on me so they could like get home. But they let me have intralipids afterwards, anyways, and the pharmacy was open still, so I was able to get all the medications I needed and such. But it was still very difficult, and there were a couple of near misses. I mean, one, we already know my uterus wasn't the ideal climate. It may have been thick enough, but the way it was just not ideal with what most fertility experts would say. Make sure you have this or try to have this. But we let that go and we tried anyways. I missed my progesterone the very first day after the transfer. Things still worked out. I had some spotting a couple of days after lifting, and I was like worried about that, but still things were okay. So things led up to me taking a pregnancy test on 10 days after the transfer. I had it positive, so I was excited. The next day or so, like, I was going back to the clinic and they were going to do a blood test to be able to, let me know. I think I did another intralipids and all of that. And all of this is here to encourage you, even with little mishaps or mistakes, being hours late for the transfer. And not to forget, because I was so late to the transfer, at that time I was doing acupuncture just before and then right after the transfer. And because of my tardiness, I wasn't able to do any acupuncture whatsoever. So imagine this, after I had done years off and on of acupuncture, sometimes 2 times a week, I didn't even do acupuncture that time. I had done one, I think I had done one maybe a couple of days before. I think I also did a massage. But what I really did, especially during that waiting period where all I'm doing is waiting for that train to say, okay, we're going to board, we're going to go to the Czech Republic now. So I could inform the clinic, yes, like, this is what time I'm getting on the train, this is what time I anticipate that I'll be there. But I had a couple of hours where I'm just kind of like hanging there waiting for answers. But even under all this stress and under all these near misses, I was able to have my daughter, and everything ended up working out. And remember, I've had 9+ years of failures, natural pregnancy failures, IVF failures where there's no implantation or there's no successful embryos, or there's implantation and then all these little tragic moments. So really what I want to help you do is to keep hope. It's 2025. It's a brand new year. I really drew to, at that particular time when I had all that anxiety, if this embryo is just going to get lost because because I'm not going to be able to get to it in the proper window, was Reiki and a little bit of my what if statements in terms of trying to be positive as much as I could under such a high stress situation. Look for announcements coming in 2025. I'm hoping to have a contest. I am getting trained to be a life coach, and I want to be able to help someone jumpstart their fertility journey and use my strategies for what helped me ultimately be successful after trying so many different strategies and options and everything I read about and everything I heard about and learned about from other women also on the journey. So feel free to um, pose a question on what you would like to see next. I will also be revealing a little bit more about my embryo transfer and all of those things. So until next time, keep the hope alive. Happy New Year, and stay tuned to learn how you can work with me one-on-one as I become certified to become a life coach.